Queen Camilla secretly plotted to destroy Prince William's reputation as King Charles. His health collapsed. But she didn't expect what came next. William uncovered everything, and now she's being dragged into royal court. Betrayal, lies, and a hidden war inside the palace. The future king isn't staying silent anymore. King Charles nears the end. William steps in as de facto king. The news broke just past 8 a.m. on a cold grey morning. King Charles III's cancer had advanced. Reports confirmed what many feared. The illness had metastasized, leaving the monarch in an increasingly fragile state. The palace tried to remain calm, but inside Buckingham the air shifted. Long-held tradition and paused formal dinners were shortened. Official engagements were quietly reassigned. Prince William didn't wait for permission. Within hours, he stepped in not as the heir, but as a man already bearing the weight of a kingdom. In the span of just 2 weeks, he chaired 3 ministerial meetings, appeared at Westminster Abbey to honor fallen soldiers, and visited both Glasgow and Newcastle to meet with struggling families. Each appearance sent one clear message: the crown was already shifting. By mid-month, public sent him, and had shifted to headlines, changed from royal health updates to something new. Something loaded with anticipation. Is William already the new king? Crowd cheered louder at his events. Politicians greeted him with new deference. Even his posture, from steady and direct, told a story Britain hadn't heard in years. That of a confident successor stepping into history, not cautiously, but boldly. Inside the palace, though not everyone celebrated, Camilla, once inseparable from Charles' side, had grown nearly invisible. She stopped attending official engagements, citing Charles's condition. But those close to the palace whispered otherwise. Or influence, once subtle but unmistakable, had shrunk. Her name was missing from court circulars. Her voice wasn't heard in staterooms, and among staff another whisper had begun to circulate: Charles is fading and William is rising. But in the quiet corners of Buckingham, far from the flashing cameras and hopeful citizens, one person wasn't watching the rise with admiration. She was watching it with fear. Camilla's fear of losing power turns to hatred. Alone in the west wing of the palace, Camilla walked the same halls she once glided through with confidence, but now they felt colder. The chatter of aides faded when she passed, or orders, once unquestioned, or now delayed or quietly revised. And in the evenings, as Charles rested in his private chambers, she sat by the window, staring into the mist, replaying the same thought over and over again. When Charles dies, they'll take everything. She didn't say it to Charles, she couldn't, but she did say it to someone unexpected. 1 week earlier, inside the stone walls of St. George's Chapel in Windsor, Camilla had slipped away after a memorial service. She found the confessional booth, lowered her voice, and let her fears roar out. "Father, I have sinned," she whispered, her voice trembling with bitterness. "But I can't just sit here and let them push me out. Charles is dying. William is taking over. They'll erase me, my title, my position, even my place in history. I won't let that happen." It was less a confession and more a warning, a declaration from a woman who had fought too hard, endured too much scandal to watch everything vanish the moment her husband slipped away. She returned to Clarence's house that night with a different look in her eyes. No more sulking, no more silence. It was time to act, and her first move: call her son. She dialed Tom Parker Bowles, her media-savvy, well-connected son. In hushed tones, she said what would become the foundation of a scheme. "I need you to arrange a meeting with 2 journalists, people who know how to spin a story, people who understand timing." Tom hesitated, but agreed. Within 48 hours, a secret meeting was arranged at a quiet cafe in Chelsea, far from the eyes of the palace. But what Camilla planned to do there wouldn't just create rumors, it would ignite a war inside the royal family, because her new strategy wasn't to stop William publicly, it was to break him quietly before the crown ever touched his head. The Chelsea Cafe conspiracy. Camilla's dirty setup. 2 days after that secret call, under grey skies and steady London drizzle, Camilla Parker Bowles arrived at a small cafe tucked away in Chelsea, the kind of place with dim lighting, jazz playing low, and no royal security in sight. Dressed in a dark coat and large sunglasses, she looked nothing like the Queen Consort. She looked like someone with something to hide. Already seated inside were to hand-picked journalists James Holloway, an older tabloid freelancer known for scandal-heavy scoops, and Sophia, sharp, young, alluring, and a close media contactor, Camilla's son Tom. The table was set for more than just coffee. It was set for a trap. Camilla leaned in and laid out her scheme, voice low, sharp, with purpose. Prince William is traveling to Northern Ireland next week. I want you there. Close, not for the official coverage, for something more personal. Sophia blinked, unsure. What exactly are we supposed to do? Camilla smiled faintly, then gave chilling instructions. You, Sophia, will get close to him, not too obvious, a touch on the arm, a private laugh, just enough for the camera to suggest something else. She turned to James. You'll photograph the moment from the right angle at the right second, one image. That's all it takes to light a fire. Let the public do the rest. Sophia hesitated. That's a dangerous game. But Camilla was ready. She pulled out a thick white envelope and slid across the table. It was cash. Enough to silence doubt, enough to buy betrayal. I'm not asking you to lie. I'm asking you to capture what people want to believe. Outside the cafe, London kept moving, but in that little corner of Chelsea a royal ambush had been set. Camilla believed she was being clever, invisible and untouchable, but she didn't know someone else was watching. Andrew Parker Strikes Back, a secret recording that shocks the palace. Just 2 blocks away from Chelsea's quiet cafe, an aging Land Rover Defender idled under a flickering street lamp. Inside, said Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla, his former husband, once a dashing cavalry officer, now a weary man with stormy eyes and decades of royal secrets locked in his mind. He stared down at a small screen mounted beside the dashboard. The footage was shaky, the angle imperfect, but the audio, it was flawless. Camilla, his voice rang through the speaker with chilling precision. Just a touch of the hand, a glance, enough for them to wonder. The media will do the rest. Every sentence tightened a knot in Andrew's chest. The camera hidden inside the frame of Camilla's chauffeur's car had been installed just days earlier. A favor from an old friend in royal security. Andrew hadn't intended to become a spy, but after overhearing her twisted confession at St. George's Chapel, something in his gut told him this went beyond royal pettiness. This was something darker. And now, sitting there in the dark rain, lightly tapping against the windshield, he had proof. She's setting him up, he muttered, his voice low and hoarse. She's actually going through with it. The on-screen, the envelope of cash sliding across the cafe table, the journalist nodding in silence, and Camilla, as I see, instructions about William's Northern Ireland tour. The plan was clear: manufacture scandal, then let public opinion destroy the heir to the throne. But Andrew didn't feel triumphant. His hands stayed clenched on the steering wheel, knuckles white, breathing shallow. Once upon a time he had loved Camilla deeply. He knew her ambition, her charm, even her manipulative streak. But this was not the woman he married. The Camilla in that video wasn't counting. She was ruthless, and worse, she had crossed a line even the coldest royals feared to breach, turning the press into a weapon against one of their own. Later that night, under the dim light of his countryside study, Andrew made the hardest decision of his life. He picked up the phone and dialed the number he hadn't used in years, Sir Edward's private line, the same trusted advisor who had served both Queen Elizabeth and King Charles. They met in secret the next morning inside a secure room deep within Kensington Palace, far from the cameras and curious staff. Andrew arrived carrying 2 things: a sealed letter addressed to William and a digital copy of the entire recording. He didn't make a speech. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He simply handed the materials over, nodded once and left. Later that evening, William watched the footage alone in his study. The room was silent except for the sound of Camilla, his voice, or cruel calmness, her manipulation, her plan to paint him as weak, unfaithful, unstable. He didn't move for nearly a minute. Then slowly his expression shifted from shock to fury. While my father lies sick in bed, she's trying to ruin me, he said through clenched teeth. He stood, walked to the window and stared out at the grey London sky. This wasn't just a personal betrayal. This wasn't just about palace politics. This was a strike against the future King of England. And at that moment, everything changed. Camilla had drawn first blood, but William would have the final word. The only question now was not if he would respond, but when and how hard. William plays it smart. He blocks the setup without saying a word. Yet 3 days after receiving the damning footage, Prince William sat at his desk inside Kensington Palace, the video still fresh in his mind. His instincts screamed for confrontation, but his training and his role as the heir demanded something else: strategy. That morning, two press requests arrived on his desk. James Holloway and Sophia Sharp had applied for accreditation to join the royal delegation's Northern Ireland tour. The cover story, documenting community agricultural work. William didn't need a second to decide. Decline them, he told his advisors. Sir Edward firmly. We don't need rumor hunters following us around. The response was delivered politely, but without room for negotiation. The press delegation was already full. There was no space, no entry, no chance. The trap was disarmed, without a single headline. Meanwhile, back at Clarence House, when Camilla heard the journalist had been rejected, she exploded. Glass shattered on the floor as she slammed her wine glass onto the table. That boy, she spat, pacing the room. He's backing me into a corner. But beneath the rage was something worse: panic. Her plan had failed before it began, and she knew if William was declining those names, then he knew everything. Still, Camilla wasn't finished. If rumors wouldn't destroy William's image, she'd try something darker, more insidious. Something the public wouldn't question as easily. Cheat attack is mine. Which I'm him. You should use Twitter. Google report Camilla final attack on William's sanity. That same week, Camilla made her boldest and most dangerous move yet. She called in a quiet favor from inside the palace. Charles' private doctor, a man in his mid-60s, discreet, loyal, and bound to her through years of shared secrets. In a secret meeting inside the inner medical wing of the palace, she placed an envelope on the table and spoke in a tone that didn't invite argument. I need a report, one that suggests Prince William is suffering mental fatigue. Nothing direct, just vague enough to spark concern. The doctor hesitated. That could end my career. Camilla leaned in. And I can secure it for life. Pressed by money, pressure, and years of quiet loyalty, he agreed. Within days, a fabricated psychological health report was drafted and leaked anonymously to the media. The headlines hit like a bomb. Is Prince William mentally fit for the throne? Royal pressure cracking the air. Signs of exhaustion sparked concern inside palace walls. Clips of William at public events, pausing mid-speech, blinking slowly, rubbing his eyes, were replayed on loop, spliced and slowed down to look suspicious. Royal commentators began debating his mental readiness, and right on cue, Camilla appeared at a charity event dressed in soft colors, her voice full of feigned concern. He's under enormous pressure. Charles is very worried. We all just hope he gets the rest he needs. The narrative was working again, but what Camilla didn't know was that Sir Edward was already reviewing the report, and he'd spotted something wrong. A forged signature. The media turns, but William hits back with truth. The headlines were everywhere. By Tuesday morning, from tabloids to respected broadcasters, the narrative had taken hold. Prince William showing signs of mental burnout. Is the next king already cracking under pressure? Clips of him blinking during a speech, looking down between meetings, or rubbing his forehead were dissected sector by media experts. Television panels hosted psychologists, analysts speculated on his fitness. The story was spreading like wildfire, and Camilla, she played her part perfectly, appearing just concerned enough. At a charity event, when asked, she sighed dramatically and said, Charles is devastated. We all are. William just needs rest. We hope he finds it. But inside Kensington Palace, William wasn't breaking down. He was preparing. He knew exactly what was happening. He had already seen the forged report, and now he was going to end it, all of it. The next morning, under thick London skies, William held a press briefing on the palace lawn. Cameras rolled, reporters huddled under umbrellas. He stepped to the podium with Kate quietly by his side. Let me make this perfectly clear, he said. I am in full health. I am mentally sound. I am continuing all duties without issue. Then came the blow that silenced the press. I have requested an independent team of royal medical professionals to assess and publish my health status. The results will be made public in the coming hours. That statement shattered Camilla his plan in one sentence. 4 p.m. The independent medical report was released, clean, factual, no red flags, no concern. Prince William is in excellent psychological health, no signs of fatigue beyond normal stress levels expected of his duties. Within hours, public opinion flipped like a switch. #sign support William began trending globally. Social media erupted with rage against the smear campaign. Commentators began asking who was behind the fake report, who wanted to hurt William. The public didn't just believe William, they rallied behind him, and now eyes turned to the source of the lie. And behind palace doors, the investigation had already begun. The Dr. Cracks and Camilla's plot is fully exposed. Back in a quiet royal office, Sir Edward sat beneath a warm desk lamp, combing through the original medical report that had ignited the scandal. As a royal advisor with decades of experience, he noticed immediately the signature was off. It was shaky, rushed, the ink bled differently, and the formatting didn't match previous official files. Something was wrong. He didn't wait. Within hours, the doctor who signed the report, a man known for his loyalty to Charles, was summoned to a confidential council meeting inside Buckingham Palace. The room was dim, formal, and lined with portraits of past kings watching silently, the doctor pale and sweating, sad, trembling before the royal council. At first he deflected. It was just a precautionary note. A misunderstanding, but under sharp questioning: who paid you? Why did you write it? When was it created? His resolve cracked like thin ice, and then he said, "It was Queen Camilla. She pressured me, said I'd be rewarded, promised protection. She told me what to write." The room went silent. The confession hit like a bomb. This wasn't gossip anymore. This was evidence of deliberate sabotage from inside the royal family. Evidence of a queen consort plotting against the future king. But the council wasn't finished. They called in Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla, his ex-husband, the man who had handed William the cafe recording days earlier. He arrived composed and solemn. He placed a USB stick on the table and said, "Everything you need to hear is on that recording, her voice or plan." In the money, the manipulation, as the audio played Camilla his instructions about photos touching William's hand, making the public believe what they want. The council members sat in stunned silence. The plot was fully exposed, no denials, no escaping. And now the royal court had no choice but to act. Royal court is called. William, Charles, and Camilla face off. It was a cold, storm-drenched night when Camilla was summoned to Buckingham Palace, not for tea, not for tradition, but for judgment. This wasn't a meeting behind closed doors. This was a royal reckoning. The palace, usually quiet at this hour, buzzed with tension. Guards stood like statues. The hallways were silent. Only the distant ticking of the grand clock echoed through the corridors. And at the center of it all, the royal council had convened. It was a private, ancient process used only in moments of crisis. Moments like this. In the grand room, King Charles sat, weakened but alert, his eyes heavy with sorrow. Prince William stood nearby, calm and unreadable, his gaze fixed ahead. This was the moment everything changed. Not just for the family, but for the monarchy. Camilla entered slowly, flanked by aides who offered no comfort. Her steps were careful. Her face showed no defiance this time, only the quiet realization that everything was unraveling. Charles was the first to speak. His voice was frail, yet sharper than ever. "I saw George cry. I watched William take your blows with dignity. And now I know I was wrong about you." Camilla tried to explain. She mentioned royal image, pressure, chaos. But William stepped forward and cut through the noise. "This wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. You tried to ruin me while my father is sick. You turned this palace into a battlefield." No one interrupted. No one defended her. The room fell quiet before the royal council began reading the verdict. Camilla was suspended from all ceremonial duties, or access to internal royal affairs revoked. She would be relocated, removed from the heart of the monarchy. There would be no appeal, no redemption, only silence. Camilla didn't protest. She didn't cry. She simply nodded, perhaps out of pride, perhaps because she knew it was over. As she turned to leave, Charles whispered something few heard: "You were supposed to be family, not the one who tore it apart." Her footsteps echoed as she exited through the heavy wooden doors, swallowed by rain and darkness. And just like that, the Queen Consort vanished, powerless. Inside the chamber, Charles looked to William. His voice barely rose above a whisper, but the words carried weight. "Continue your work, son. This is your kingdom now. A kingdom cleansed, the rise of a new era." By morning the rain had stopped, but the storm had already written history. Newspapers hit the streets before sunrise, and by breakfast Britain had already decided Camilla. His name was splashed across every front page, but this time not with praise or admiration. Being stripped of power, the Queen who overreached. William reclaims the crown's honor. The tone wasn't subtle, it was a cultural shift. Commentators on morning shows didn't just report what had happened, they celebrated it. "The shadow monarchy has fallen," one analyst on BBC declared. "This is the beginning of something clean, honest, and real." Public support for Prince William surged across polls, social media, and editorials. Even critics who once questioned his readiness now added he had risen not through force or scandal, but through principle and control. One tabloid headlines captured the public mood perfectly. "He didn't wear the crown, but he ruled like a king." Inside Kensington Palace there were no cheers or celebrations. The atmosphere was heavy but also sacred. William didn't walk taller, he didn't post, he simply sat beside his father, took King Charles's fragile hand and said only one thing: "I'll protect the family. I'll protect the crown." Charles gave a faint nod, his face marked by age and illness, but also relief. He knew the transition had already begun, not in a formal ceremony, but in